Joining us, author of the Early Brief newsletter at the Washington Post, Dan Merica, and Mark Leibovich, who is still with us. So, Dan, talk to me about the Democrats' hope for Max Miller's seat.
I mean, it's pretty remarkable because I think, even 2 weeks ago, you probably wouldn't have even been talking about this race, let alone talking about it as a toss-up. And I think it speaks to actually what you were talking about in your first segment about the president not wanting to look weak. There's some reporting out there that the president pressured Ohio Republicans not to call for Max Miller's ouster. I have spoken with local activists in Max Miller's district who actually credit the fact that Max Miller has fought these allegations against him, both in Congress and in the press, as the reason that voters are sticking with him, or the voters will stick with him. One activist in particular told me that it's President Trump's example from 2016 and other scandals where he fought back that has kind of conditioned Republicans to think that if a candidate is fighting back against allegations, that they likely are not true, whether they are true or not. So I think that actually speaks to what your first segment was, where the president doesn't like to look weak. He fights back against allegations against him, and that has conditioned and really changed the Republican Party to be more in his image in that way. And I think you could also make the case there are some aspects of the Democratic Party that have changed in that way as well, as evidenced by the Graham Plattner situation in Maine. As to whether Ohio could be a swing state again, I think it's an interesting question. You covered 2016. I covered 2016. I remember going to Ohio, I think it was like 13 or 14 times between Labor Day and Election Day with Hillary Clinton because it was such a battleground. Whether that comes back is an interesting question, but certainly if these races tilt towards Democrats, it could help go that way.
Listen, Ohio used to be the state that would determine who won the presidential election. It was very much a swing state, a purple state. Donald Trump just has owned it since he came onto the political scene. The allegations against Miller, just remind us exactly what he's been accused of again, Dan.
So it's divorce proceedings with his now ex-wife, who is the daughter of Senator Moreno in Ohio. Emily Moreno is her name. It's everything from scalding his ex-wife with hot water to injuring his daughter. It's pretty sordid, and it's all through these divorce proceedings. But Miller has denied, as you noted, the accusations against him. He's also called for an ethics investigation on Capitol Hill into himself, so he says he can clear his name. But as I said, many Republicans, there have been some who have called for him to get out, but there are many Republicans in the district, activists and such, who are sticking with him.
Yeah, I mean, serious allegations.
Serious allegations, yeah.
I think it's so interesting that Dan brought it back, Mark, to our first segment, and Donald Trump not wanting to look weak, not wanting to back away from a candidate who's facing these allegations, and then opening the door for Democrats to have a real fight for a seat that they would normally not even be looking at. I mean, they weren't looking at Brian Poindexter before this. He wasn't getting a lot of money. He was struggling to raise money. And now it appears he's going to get flooded with Democratic cash.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason for this, obviously, is all Max Miller. I mean, I do think that, look, I mean, when he was asked about this, probably about 10 days ago now, his only defense is, look at what Donald J. Trump did in 2016 and, this and that and the other thing. You immediately, I mean, this has a sort of a double effect for him. One, I mean, he doesn't have to do anything except just say, look, I'm being wrongly accused just like he was, but also it's a way of pandering to the president, to the audience of one, and make sure that he has his back, which ultimately is probably what saved him and kept him on the ballot, or, ultimately, might put the seat in real jeopardy. So, yeah, I mean, look, this has happened again and again and again. I mean, I was thinking, Jeanine Pirro, the U.S. Attorney for D.C., basically dropped the charges against the canoeist, the Olympic canoer who was a canoeist or canoer who was charged with the alleged vandalism of the reflecting pool, dropped the charges. Trump went ballistic on this. I mean, it seems like she was lucky to keep her job. And again, I think that she committed the cardinal sin of weakness, of making, just sort of doing a 180 on these charges and saying, like, we have nothing. So, yeah, that is the worst thing you can do. And I think Max Miller probably played to that, and he knows them as well as anyone.
The worst thing you can do is back down. By the way, we're going to talk about new charges that Donald Trump wants out of the DOJ regarding the canoeist, as you put it, in the next segment. But the allegations against Miller, they're not new. Stephanie Grisham, who used to be the press person for Donald Trump in 2016, dated him and alleged in her memoir that he was, did she say violent? That he was having a violent temper and physically abusing her, so violent in their relationship. Miller previously sued her over that before settling. So, I mean, this is not a new thing. I wonder what it can tell us about the Republican electorate. I mean, there have been instances where Republicans facing these serious allegations have dropped out recently. Max Miller's not one of them, but the Democrats have had two high-profile cases of this. Eric Swalwell, Graham Plattner, they've exited the race. A new candidate stepped in. What does it tell us about the sentiment among Republican higher-ups about the Republican electorate? Mark.
I mean, obviously, there's a different permission structure in both parties. We've seen this again and again and again. Democrats seem to be, I would say, moving in maybe a more tolerant direction, thinking that maybe they overcorrected the first time around with people like Al Franken, who, maybe in retrospect, there's some regret that he was sort of forced to resign, and some other examples. But look, ultimately, Plattner did get out, Swalwell did get out, and I do think probably it comes down to a matter of degree. I mean, both of the charges against both of those guys were pretty egregious after a while. They looked pretty credible, and ultimately the money was drying up. There were a lot of calls for them to leave, and they really had no choice. But, I do think there might be a slight correction here, but ultimately the permission structure in the Republican Party for this kind of behavior is much, much greater than what you would have if you were a Democrat.